That was very healing for my inner child to hear right now.
What happens when you chat with two other marketers about anything but marketing? True awesomeness, like talking about Taylor Swift and even some parenting tips. This conversation with Trish and Tom brought plenty of laughs and value to me. Here's what we dived into in the rest of this episode: their unique take on good enough and when to ship content and product, how Trish uses vulnerability to build team trust, why Tom embraces mistakes as a growth driver, small habits they've each adopted to improve their focus and their health, and some lessons for managing feedback, which I really needed. Tom is from season 2, episode 3, and Trish is from season 2, episode 8, if you want to go deeper on their insights. This is episode 6 of Friends of On Marketing. This episode was recorded on April 19th, 2024. This is a show where I bring friends, guests of On Marketing back on the show to talk anything. Emphasis on the anything. I hope it gets weird. Thank you for being here, and make sure to follow and support my friends. Their work is important, and so is yours. So reach out if you want to chat marketing, and maybe you'll get a future Friends episode. Before we get back to our conversation, let's get this out of the way. All opinions shared in this podcast are the individual views of the host and friends, guests, not those of their employers or associate organizations. This content is intended for informational purposes and should not be considered professional marketing or life guidance. Listeners act on the information provided at their own risk. Thank you for being here, and I hope you enjoy the conversation. Today I have Tom Winter and Trish Seidel. Hopefully I said that right, but probably wrong. Now, to get this started, what is something either of you have been thinking a lot about or just kind of obsessing about? Whenever you get into a conversation, this topic, this thought, this concept comes to mind. Does anything pop into your head?
I mean, outside of the new Taylor Swift album being launched today, which I'm really not that big of a Taylor Swift fan, but everyone's been talking about it, so I feel like it's worth mentioning, probably, like a good pop culture reference. But no, like what's been on my mind? I think what's been mostly on my mind is like this idea of progress over perfection. And it's come up in a lot of my conversations recently that, progress is much more impressive than doing something well or perfectly. And that has just been kind of like I've been noodling over this week.
So for me, like for the last, I think, month, we were working on a freemium version of a plugin for Chrome, like that will be used for internal linking. And to be honest, I already hate it because it takes up a lot more time. Like I'm like spending time till really midnight, like just to perfect everything out, like to be able to launch it. At the moment, I'm trying to push it to Google. I know that Google will come back to me and say like, Tom, like you have to fix this, and that. But like, so this is on my mind. I want to like push it out, like, and give it to everybody so they can play around and actually do some internal linking on their page in the easier way based on data.
Ooh, I love that. Can I beta test? I want to beta test.
Sure, like just like let Google beta test it first, like so they actually approve
Oh,
it at least.
So, Tom, just to kind of merge these two ideas, how do you focus when you're trying to launch something on not having it be perfect per se, but have it be something that moves the product forward or just progress, as Trish kind of brought up this dichotomy of perfection and progress? How do you think about that with launching? And maybe that's the challenge if you're trying to get it so right that it...
the balance.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But this is a problem. Like, it took me probably 10 years, and I'm still not at the place where I should be, to be honest. Done is better than perfect. Like, you actually have to believe in that. Like, and I think in the first sentence, Trish said, like, also, like, progress means, like, not being perfect in everything. Like, because if you will not push things out, unfortunately, I'm a perfectionist, which is really, I'm struggling, like,
Welcome to
to
the
deliver.
Recovering Perfectionist Club.
Ah, yeah, like I would love to actually be better at like doing like a little bit less like perfect because that would speed up the process. I think in 0 to 1, I don't remember who wrote the book, but they said if you're not ashamed of the thing that you're launching too late. And this is basically what you should do.
Ooh,
That
love that.
push it out a little bit earlier. I know that there will be a lot of glitches in the app, for example, but I still want to hear the feedback, like of people. You have to take your ego aside, take it away somewhere, like hide it in the closet, and just do it. Because otherwise, like you will do it forever. Like you make it better, better, and better.
Yeah. Well, good enough doesn't exist, right? Like good enough does exist, but like what is that to us that I think for someone who's so implicated in the process, like good enough is never going to be enough. And I think
Exactly.
that you are not the best judge, like because you're so into it, you're so in it that you are not the best judge of person to say that it is ready.
Yeah, and obviously my realm is more in content and not creating apps. But I think so many times we do that with content where we just kind of keep tweaking it, keep adding. And I try to think of like, where is that point where the diminishing returns, which is obviously kind of a idea of like, at this point, it won't get any better incrementally than just shipping it and then iterating off the ship. But I think there are probably some things that like it's a one-way door per se, so once it's shipped you can't iterate. But if it's not, I find so much value in book writing per se, not to write a book but to create something and then have people iterate, so then the final print version has been inputted by so many people and stuff. So how do you all think about that point in the sand which moves on every project or whichever, of like, at this point it's good enough? Like, do you define good enough, or do you just have an intuitive feeling that, hey, this is good enough, let's ship, and kind of reiterate on the fly?
When I start asking myself the question of is it good enough, it's good enough.
That's good.
Like when I get to the point where I start asking myself that question and having that reflection of being like, okay, logically, does it meet all the criteria that I've set for my content? Yes. Does it have all the SEO optimizations that I logically can do right now today? Yes. Does it respond to the search intent in an intellectual, unique, and intelligent way? Yes. Could it be better? Could some turns of phrases be better? Could there be more visuals added to help explain these concepts? For sure. Yeah. But is it going to is it good enough? Then absolutely yes. Again, it's once I ask myself that question, I know that it is.
So I have a different approach, especially when it comes to content, how to define what's good enough. Like I like to try frame myself just to create kind of like a time bomb. So I have like 5 hours. After 5 hours, no matter what, I'm clicking enter. This is like what it does. Like I have like because no matter how big is the project, how much time you will have, you will fill it out all. Like this is the rule. Like if you have like 7 days for finishing up the project, you will use 7 days. If you have 3 days for the same project, you would just like do it in 3 days. So like just do a time bomb, like click enter whenever time is up. That's good enough.
Yeah, that's what I do with LinkedIn. With my LinkedIn content, I give myself 30 minutes, and if I can't write my post in 30 minutes, well, then I failed my task. But I don't let myself go over the 30 minutes because then I can just sit there and convince myself otherwise that it's not smart enough, it's not funny enough, it's not valuable enough, and I'm just like, With blog content, with like other like SEO content, I have a very different mindset. But with like my own personal brand, I'm just like I could sit there and just be like, for days.
I love how you bring that up, Tom. I'm not educated enough to know the actual law or the theory that time fills up to whatever the amount you have, which is validated through those studies, and that's so true. But I'm guessing even if you do that, that first, second, third time, it's still uncomfortable to be like, okay, 4 hours is up or 2 hours is up. And I just feel like I could tweak it a bit more, but I'm gonna let it go. Like it's still, I'm guessing, somewhat anxiety inducing or a little stressful when you first did it. And maybe you've done it so many times that now it's like, no, I ship at 4 hours. Or am I like kind of being too soft maybe and thinking that just using that time is enough, and there isn't like anxiety that comes that first or second
No,
time?
anxiety doesn't go away. Like it's still there. But the problem with like making things perfect, like we see the mistakes, nobody else does. Like so we are already at the level that like nobody will see it.
So it's funny because like it's this could be very much a cultural thing. Is that very common in France that we critique loudly and publicly, and I don't know if it's the same thing in Poland, but it's like if when we anytime there's a launch, anytime there's an update, anytime there's an article written, I will get feedback, and just as from every company that I've worked in, every single one, whether I'm an intern, whether I'm the head of content, whatever, and I will get a message every single time being like, oh, like this could be said this better, this could be done this better, why did you take this angle, I think this angle would have been better, blah blah blah. I'm just like, you're allowed to think that, like that's great. Like sometimes it's like very legitimate feedback and I'm like, cool, like that's good to know, like for sure take that in feedback and apply it to next time. But a lot of the time it's just a matter of opinion, and they just feel the need to be seen and heard. And so like, yeah, I you just have to take it as it comes. And like it's something I've been teaching my juniors because they're struggling with this right now, is that they're like, I thought I did it well, why am I still getting this feedback? Like I thought I did it well, like you signed off on it. And I was like, everyone will have an opinion, everyone does. They will. And I was like, the only feedback that matters is the feedback that you get from me, from our direct superior, and from how you feel about the work that you've done. Like it's been very educational.
About like people, like working with people, like I'm a strange guy that loves constructive feedback. Negative feedback is the one that I really crave because then I can learn something from that. And I have to remember that not everybody is like me. Like mainly I'm strange and everybody is like sane, like around me. So I have to remember, like, first, before you say actually what you want, like just to like do a sandwich and say like, you know what, like you did good, this, I don't need this kind of feedback. Like for me, like if somebody says like, Tom, you did good, like I'm going like, there, Tom, like let's move on. Like I want the meat, like the things that matter. Like so the
We are so
comments.
different.
Yeah, exactly, I know that. I'm like, I'm really strange and I know this. So and I have to remember about that with people, like because that doesn't work out.
It's brave. I just want you to tell me that I'm smart and pretty and pat me on the back. And I'm just like,
Yeah,
thank
yeah,
you. Like,
yeah.
thank you.
I just want the buns of the sandwich. I don't care about that meat and the negative stuff. No, I'm just kidding. That's terrible, actually, now that I
Uh,
said that out loud. So I'm someone who, contrarian, I disagree a lot. I've had this framework where I assent to dissent. So what's the assent? What's the things we agree upon? And then where's the dissent? So it's always that order because if you dissent to assent, I don't hear anything you like because I'm instantly like, you thought this article was crap, even though there was 74 things you really liked. And I've really struggled with that because I'm someone who sometimes wants to maybe disregard psychology in that framing, like of like, it doesn't matter what comes first, but it's like, no, anchoring is very like it's a concrete thing that we anchor based off that first. So I really like how you said that, but then there's self-awareness to realize you might have an employee that's unique, special, like Tom, who doesn't need that to get right to say, hey, here's where you could improve. Really good article, and that's enough for Tom, where someone else could be like, they hated it. I'm going to quit my job. They don't like me. I think it's very important to be aware of your own, what you need, and then find soil. But as a leader, try to like understand who's under you and how do I best build them up and encourage them.
So interesting because the way we receive and get feedback is not the way that we necessarily need to give it, and that it can be a very like a challenge for someone in a leadership role is not doing everything the way that you need it to be done, is doing the way that they need it to be done.
Yeah, I think of communication being a very clear example where we communicate the way we feel bestly done, but then not realizing that actually with someone I need to probably think of how is it best communicated to them, which gets to like this thing of like, and maybe I've talked about this with both of you individually, but just this that thought of like the world doesn't revolve around me, the exonder they would call it, where you just realize like I'm not the main character of this show. I'm one of the million and zillion side characters. And then you start to realize maybe I should focus more on them in approaching that, which I think is a lifelong journey, at least for me, to realize that it's not Jordan's show, but it's the world and I can play a
Technically,
part,
it
but it's
is
not about
Jordan's
me.
show right now.
For That's true. I think it's actually both of your shows. So I kind of wanted to double down on some of this critiquing conversation because I find a lot within marketing is whether you're a leader, you get something from somebody, you have to give it feedback, critique it, or you're just walking down the street and you see some marketing and maybe naturally like me, you just critique it. But like, how do you critique in a positive way, I guess, maybe a very broad way, but like, how do you, in Tom, you kind of talked about the sandwich, so maybe there's some of that, but like, how do you think about critiquing things in marketing and just in general in life?
whenever like I have this rule, like whenever I'm critiquing something, I'm trying to figure out like how I would do something different. So I'm giving like also like I'm trying to give a solution. If I don't have a solution, so for example, I'm getting something from a graphic designer, right? And I don't like it. I'm not allowed to say, look, I hate it, it looks bad. I need to say exactly what I mean by like I don't like it. So what's wrong? Or I have another solution. I don't have to know exactly, but I have to say out loud, like, look, I don't like it, but I don't know why I don't like it. Let's talk about it, like with each other about it. Maybe we'll discover it together. But if we will not find it out like in 10 minutes, like let's skip it. Like it doesn't matter that I don't like it. I don't have the why. So like I'm not allowed to critique anymore. Like I'm using the same rule in my marriage. So like if I don't like I don't know, going to sushi because my wife proposed something, I need to propose like a different solution. So let's go to pizza, whatever. Or I can say like you know what, like I don't like sushi. I don't want to go there, but I don't know why. Like so let's talk about it together. So like at least it's clear. It's not that like, oh, I hate you, but something that makes sense and it's like we can discuss it. It opens up the discussion like with customers, with employees, with your spouse, like whoever. But that opens up the discussion when you're critiquing things.
In the professional world, like I always kind of go back to the brief that was given for any project, anything, and I that's the first place that I go when I if I have something to critique, I want to make sure that the brief was clear because a lot of the time I find that when there's an issue with work, it's because someone was missing information somewhere. And I've seen it time and time again. And so if it's going back to our example of the designer, is that maybe I don't like it because it's not as like cool or chic or trendy or modern as I was looking for. It's because I didn't properly give them examples of what I was looking for in the brief. And to me, that is a critique that I would give myself and being like, I need to brief better next time. And my first step is to be like to this designer would be like, I'm so sorry I didn't brief you properly. This is more what I'm looking for. And that would be how I approach that situation. And I would say 90% of the time, it's because the brief wasn't clear. And maybe you don't know what you're looking for. And that's like Tom, like you said, like, I don't really know why I like it, or I don't really know what I'm looking for. But let me give you some things that I like, and we can like start from there. That's an entirely different conversation. But like 99% of the time, it's because someone made mistakes, someone is not doing their job properly, someone is making errors because they're not being briefed properly. That's what I would say.
Because like we're forgetting right now, like when talking to ChatGPT, for example, using AI, that we also have to brief like AI. Like if we expect something and if we're not getting the things that we want, that means our fault, like is that we didn't brief them like properly. The same goes with management, as you mentioned. Like if you're managing a person, brief the person. Everybody hates briefing people, machines, whatever. But this is a skill of the future.
It really is. It really is. And even like you said, going back to like the personal relationships, Tom, like it's managing expectations. Like managing expectations in your personal life, briefing properly in your professional life. I think those two things are like really overlap. And like, yes, you want to go to sushi, but like my expectation is that we were going to have sushi and like sake and like have a really fun night out and like do this and that. And you're like, and then the expectation changes and you're disappointed because the expectation wasn't communicated properly. And so that to me is like that rejoins those two concepts of briefing and managing expectations and things like that. And yeah, I just kind of it all circles back there for me.
I love that. Trish, I just want to highlight one thing you did, or as you're talking there, you really looked at yourself to get to the brief, right? It was almost this, in this saying is probably not applicable here completely, but it's like lenient with others, strict with self. And I think of that many times when it's like, okay, I could look at it and say, okay, there was probably enough in the brief that if you're able to kind of think creatively, you could have got, but hey, hold up. I'm going to see what I did and I didn't do, and I'm going to improve upon that in the future to realize I need to get clearer in my brief. And I think that's extreme ownership, Jocko Willink. There's so many things that I find that point to that of like, what could I have done to improve this? So in the relational, whatever, it's like, yeah, she could have heard me, my wife, but let me kind of look back at what I didn't do to set up that expectation or not. So I really like that. I wanted to talk about it because I find that a lot of people in marketing or just in arts, writing, they're critique, like they just are people who can critique things because that's how they get to be so good themselves, that they critique themselves all the time, and they're very kind of meticulous at times. So I just find that it's a topic that happens a lot, critiquing, feedback, all of those things. But like, how much do we talk about or really think about like how to do it better? So I appreciate the comments and the thoughts on how to do that well.
Yeah, totally. I think it's so important. Like it's so important, especially like in a leadership role, is that I have one of my juniors asked me, he's like, Trish, have I ever done anything that was like really pissed you off? And I was like, no, like no. And he's like, I've made some really big mistakes. And I was like, you know what? Like, no, you haven't. First of all, this is not an emergency. Like nothing and then what we do is an emergency situation. It is not life or death. So it's not worth getting upset over. Second of all, I was like, the more afraid you are to make mistakes, the more mistakes you're gonna make. And I think that that is like, and unfortunately, I've had to learn that the hard way of being in the opposite position of a junior and having a really difficult management situation and like very afraid to make mistakes to the point where I couldn't even send an email without being like they need to check it. You know what I mean? And I think that it's like we've all been through those toxic manager situations. Like I'm sure we all have. Um, but it's like it's yeah. I don't find that there's much to get really upset over in the professional world. I just don't.
So what I try to do is I actually try to encourage people to make mistakes. I believe that if you're not making mistakes, that you're not doing probably anything, which is not the thing that I want. I want you to do something and progress, and you can't progress without doing mistakes. I hate when somebody does the same mistake twice. This is where we have the problem, and then like I'm getting a little bit pissed. But like I try to encourage people to actually do them because that means they're trying to do something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm
No, I
like I'm
love.
so nice. Like really, do you want to work for me? Like just join our team.
Oh,
I'm
this has
nice.
become a product pitch and a job pitch by Tom. I love it. No, it's great. I would totally work for you, Tom. Because it to your point, Trish, in kind of as you just said, Tom, I think there is this like thing of like to make more mistakes is actually good, as ironic as that is. And if people don't feel safe to even put down their mistakes, there could be more mistakes that are happening, but you don't find out. So this was done in like a study of hospitals that the more psychologically safe they were, the more mistakes they had. And that kind of found out like, why would that be? And they realized, oh wait, the other places just don't report their mistakes. So they're making, if not more, but then we can't learn from those mistakes. So this woman at this hospital takes the bed sheet rather than saying, hey, we're out of bed sheets. So then the next person has to deal with that. So that was like groundbreaking for me. So maybe building off that, like, and maybe you don't have to build psychologically safe spaces, but I think we're all in spaces, whether with peers, with someone we love, or whichever, that we're contributing to if it's psychologically safe, if that person feels comfortable to share. And this is something I've struggled with being someone of, I hope, high standards. I can kind of create this aura of like, I don't know if I want to share that with Jordan. Like he's up here and I've really had to work of how do I create a space that someone feels safe to come to me and share things or whichever. Does anything come to your mind on intentional or unintentional things you do that help create safe spaces wherever you go so people feel more comfortable to share or just be themselves?
Just being loud about your own mistakes. We all make them. Like we all do. And like I'm generally not that I'm not I mean unless it's something like super embarrassing, like not embarrassed about a mistake that I've made because I'm also learning and that's okay. So I think owning your own mistakes and saying that to your team or being like, "Oh, I messed this up. Like, so sorry. I missed this meeting. Like, I was so disorganized today. I'm so sorry." Like, being showing your humanity, I think that is a great way to be like, "Well, she made a mistake, and that's okay," you know?
Yeah, so I totally agree with Trish, like 100%. Like creating a no blame culture inside the company actually helps with one thing from management perspective. I prefer to know about the mistake as soon as possible because if you make a mistake and then you try to fix it and you make another mistake when fixing it, then we're in trouble. Like that can be a huge fire that is not that easy to manage. So I prefer to and tell people like early, like, look, come to me if you send out like a spam email like to 100 additional people that you shouldn't have, like please let me know early that like we have a problem. Because then I can manage that. I can help you out to fix it, but you can only have it when there's no blame culture.
I really enjoy what you said, Trish. Lead with your own failures, be open to share those. I think that's really important because I think nobody wants to follow a perfect human because we know nobody's perfect. So then we kind of are like, what's really up with them? So if you just lead with those kind of vulnerableness, then it's like, okay, I get it. She's actually a real human because, like me, she fails and she has these lapses, which I think is super important. But I wonder, as Tom, you're talking about, I want people to come to me very quick. That's clearly a really safe culture that someone feels comfortable coming quick to, and that's great. But I wonder, like with my family, when I was a kid, I remember I broke a window, and my dad like wasn't that bad of a person, never abused me or did anything. But man, I pushed that till as long as I could to tell him that like I broke the window of our because I just knew he was gonna be upset. So it's like I wonder too sometimes there's just this like and maybe as a CEO or certain roles you're put into a father, son, or parent, child where you almost have to do more work or just accept that like it's gonna be really hard to create that psychologically safe because of our the positions that we're in or whichever. And I've seen this sometimes with CEOs where they strive and really want to be, but everybody knows I'm going to somebody else before I go to the CEO with the issue, just because like they say they want it, right? They say what Tom's saying, but I saw who got just, charcoaled before who brought up problems. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to wait. So it seems to be like you can say it, but you have to do things. But even in certain situations, it's just like really hard with the context or whichever to like create that safe environment. You almost have to do more work. Or maybe I'm off on that. I just have felt that in certain environments.
No, I mean, I think words mean nothing. Like I don't think words without action and words without action behind the words mean absolutely nothing. And I think it can have that opposite effect of it being dishonest. If you're like, yes, and I'm sure Tom is wonderful, so I'm sure that that is not the case. But we've all been in companies where like, yeah, we're like a family. And then
Yeah.
no, we're not. Like, no, we're not. Um, so I think words that have that mean nothing is worse than not having that policy at all. You know what I mean?
From the management perspective, I think you have to have like a couple of plays that you can use when it happens, because if you are not prepared, like you will like not make it happen. So, for example, like I have two daughters, 7 and 8, and I'm just waiting for them to bring me the first F, and I'll take them to the ice cream, like because like I have it prepared. I know exactly what I'm going to do. I just need to wait for the right moment, like to do it. So if you have these plays in your head, you know what to do. Like you will not have to like use your reptile brain like just to go furious and go wild with the like what you would like to say to the person. I did it in my life once, I remember, and I'm happy that I did it because I've learned from that. But like you have to have situations like played out.
That was very healing for my inner child to hear right now.
I love that. Yeah, preparation, right? Kind of thinking before or having some foresight to when those moments happen or structuring. Yeah, I like that, Tom. I wish I was your child. All right,
Literally.
I have kind of I have a question to kind of wrap this show up, but it's kind of just about something you've been thinking about, something you've been doing that's been helping that you don't see many people talking about. You don't read a ton. Is there anything that comes to mind of something that you think more people should be thinking about, should be doing? Maybe for me, that's a keto diet. Maybe it's meditation, mindfulness. Like, what is something, I don't do the keto diet, but what is something that you are thinking about, you're doing that it's like you wish some more people would get onto it or think about it or take a step in that direction?
Okay, I can start. Like I'm doing right now, like for the last month, intermittent fasting. And there's one thing that I didn't realize, like, and I didn't know. Uh, I'll come back to one thing because one of my friends, like really a good entrepreneur, said, like, if you want to develop a habit, ask yourself one question, one simple question. Do you want to continue with that until the end of your life? And like if I would like go back like 2 months back, because this is how much like I did like of intermittent fasting, like 16 hours per day. I end food like at 3, 4 o'clock, and I don't eat afterwards. If you ask me this question, I was like, hell no, because like my main goal was like just to lose a little bit of weight, feel a little bit better, like maybe more concentrated. But something magical happened for me, at least. My sleep went to like really beyond my imagination. I normally, when I wear my Garmin watch, I have like scores between 60 and 80. This is like, if I get an 80, that's like for me, Tom, like you slept really, really well. When I started to do my intermittent fasting, like, and I finished food by like 3, 4 o'clock p.m., I've realized I went to 95, 96 scores on my watch, which was I wasn't even close. Like, and it's all because like my insulin levels dropped before I go to sleep. Easy as that. I didn't know about it. Like, I'm amazed. And this makes me think like, okay, I'll continue that. I'm willing to continue that till the end of my life because I'm getting my sleep back in the way that I want.
That's awesome, Tom. I did intermittent fasting for like 3, 4, 5 years, and it was kind of like focus. There's so many things I got from it. I'm not currently doing it, but I like that question. I would push back on that, that I'm not sure if there's anything other than eat, drink, and sleep that like I'll do forever, because like you just should constantly change like kind of the habits or what works. Like for you, intermittent fasting is working really well. Maybe something happens where you need to eat during that period. It just doesn't work. So I think there could be like But maybe you guys have things you'll do the rest of your life, but I can't think of many things I'll do forever because that's
Like
like, then I'm just
sports,
stuck in that.
traveling, like whatever, like smoking, whatever. If you want to smoke like till the end of your life, that's a habit. Like kind of like
That's fair.
that's
So
okay.
it would help you lose a bad habit, maybe like something you're like, I'll quit this eventually, but then it gets you to say, I don't want to drink every night for the rest of my life. I should probably stop this today. I like that, like kind of like for negative or habits I'm not sure are beneficial. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I guess depends on who you ask. That's real good, Tom. I appreciate you sharing that. I feel sometimes we don't always share our health habits or like what, but it's like you sleeping better makes you a better human. I can only imagine, or better, SEO wizard or whatever. Like it just it's weird how those things can contribute. So I love that you brought that onto this. Trish, does anything come to your mind that you think we need to be spending more time?
Yeah, I have my notifications turned off on my phone all the time. It's changed my life. Like, I mean, I allow notifications from certain people, from like my parents, for example, and I get let all phone calls come through with things like that. But like all other notifications are off 24/7. And it has just been such a refreshing time for me because I get overwhelmed by, I think for everyone who's like a business owner or who's working on their or personal brand, like I'm just inundated with notifications 24/7 hours of the day, especially like my family lives in the United States. It's like they're awake when I'm sleeping and it's just like it's a lot of mental load for me to carry. And since I've been able to control when I look at my phone and when I decide to catch up with everybody versus kind of being a victim to the notifications, it's been really helpful for my mental health of being more in control of like what I do and when.
Was there a moment, a point that you thought I should do this, or like how did you get to that? Clearly, you had been inundated for a bit of time with notifications or all that. Like, what was the reason? Did you read it in a book? Did like someone do it,
No,
and you're like, let me do it now?
I just started putting my phone on like work mode when I'm in the office, and so I'm not getting like again just like I'm not hearing my phone buzzing from WhatsApp 7 times a day, several hundred times a day, and that was like I already felt much more at peace in the office, and I found myself taking it off later and later and later and later. Like when I would get home,
Hmm.
I'd be like, okay, time to timely turn my notifications back on. I just found that I never wanted to. Like yeah, kept
I
wanting to be in
love
control
that.
of it, and that was great.
Yeah, I don't think we realize how much control the notification has over us, the dopamine that it delivers when it's a new LinkedIn like or something, that it's really important to kind of stop that because you will become a dopamine junkie sooner or later. Like it's like you keep smoking a little bit, like you'll need more. So, but it's less of smoking because it's just a notification. So I'm not doing anything, but it's still like kind of training you, Pavlov's dog. You hear that or the actual noise and you go to it, you like, and I've caught myself, I'm on do not disturb. There was this song D&D, so I kind of like play that to get me in the mode, but like I'm always on D&D, I'm always on do not disturb. People get upset because they'll send me a message and it says Jordan's on do not disturb, do you want to disturb anyway? And it's like, honestly, I'll take some flack to get my sanity back. Like I'm okay, like someone being like, dude, why are you on do not disturb? You're not that important, whatever. And it's like, that's okay. Like I just want my time and my energy and my
Yeah.
focus back. So I'll sacrifice some of that dignity. But
It's
I
a
love
mental
that,
load.
Trish.
Even if I'm not looking at my phone, I know that it's buzzing. I'm distracted. It's taking me out of my present thought to be like, oh, like, and now I just need when you're a content creator, like all of us here, like when you're in the zone, like you got to stay in the zone. And I can't afford, like, my time is too precious and I can't afford to, like, be distracted by that kind of stuff right now.
Well, thank you both so much for coming on. This was really fun just to see you both. You obviously know each other, so you had great chemistry. I just kind of stood over here and watched. So I appreciate you, though, for giving up the time and your insights today. So thank you.
Thanks a lot,
Of
Jordan.
course. So nice to be here.
And this is the end of the podcast. What one idea or topic of conversation stood out to you today? Write it down, share it with a friend, post it on social. The main thing is take action. That's how we go from theory to mastery. We need to practice. We need to put it into practice. Thank you for listening and being here, and I hope you tune in next week.